Hi, everyone. It's Friday, and you know what that means. Another episode of Coffee, Chats, and Communications. Hey, Mia.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy this Friday because we have one of our dear friends, Nancy Green, visiting with us. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, nice to see you, Liz and Mia.
It's great to have you. We've known you for several years now through a great industry conference called DocStrat Forum. And you sit on the board there. And we've always had such great conversations with you related to the insurance industry and customer communications. So we thought it'd be nice to have you on for today's episode.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So first, we always start with our
Just to lay
coffee.
the scene very quickly, Nancy does work for a large insurer. So we don't just talk insurance,
We just like talking documents.
Yeah, very
That's a cool
real.
thing.
Well, with that, let's all start with our cup of coffee because that's always the way to start a good conversation. And I brought today my security cup, my security mug that Mia laughs every time I bring it because, yes, I'm not the most secure out of all of us here. But security is not complete without you. So I think with that, that's a perfect segue into sort of talking about, Nancy, how were you in your industry sort of looking at digital transformation prior to the pandemic, and how did that accelerate like during the pandemic and what you're seeing now?
Well, definitely we'll get into that, but I wanted to share my mug collection.
Oh, let's see that first.
First important thing here. So that was like, I love mugs. I love glasses. So this was hard. I got some feedback. My husband said to use the Stonehenge mug, which we actually got at Stonehenge and is 30 years old, but just a little
I love that.
fun one. Then my daughter said, use the narwhal mug because it's a narwhal mug. Why not? And then I decided to use, instead I picked my Scrabble mug, which has the triple
love that.
inside. So cheers.
Cheers. I love that. To a fellow Scrabble aficionado.
Yeah. So interrupt, but definitely excited. Definitely found that COVID accelerated our push to digital. Obviously, like any company or anyone today, customers want digital. It's something that we're trying to do just to make things easier. I'm passionate about the customer experience. I'm a discriminating. I like to, as a consumer, I want things quickly and secure and everything. So when COVID came, we actually looked very quickly on how do we make it easier for our customers. A lot of our forms are getting information back to us was fax, believe it or not, and mail. And those are two things when you're in a pandemic that you probably don't have access to, and mail was slow. So we needed to look right away on what are better ways to get things for our customer. Obviously email. We actually developed across our organization a portal so customers can go in, use multi-factor authentication, get in and submit things, especially for things important like people needed withdrawals, they needed to submit claims. We really wanted to be sensitive to what people needed at the time and what we could create. So definitely see that. Again, we were working on things anyway, but definitely saw a push.
And I know we've had these conversations on not only did you digitize, you were thinking of how to incorporate technologies that you hadn't done before just to make things easier, like the QR code on any form that is sent out to make it easier for the customer to actually use their phone and get to the form quickly.
Right. We're trying to experiment on things and what's easiest. And, QR code, does it take you to, if people use it, can it take you to the website faster, get where you need to go? We're also experimenting now with Notary Online, which is something like not all documents need it, but for ones, no one really wants to go out and find a notary and do that. So we're looking and we're actually experimenting with that right now. So you're right. What are other ways to just make it easier? And then we'd throw to you guys too, like when we look at forms or collecting data, there's so many different ways. Like you have your old PDFs, fillable forms, you have user interfaces, you have online portals and stuff. We see customers going different ways. We've also done research on it too to see actually pre-COVID, what were your digital behaviors? And then now within COVID, are you using things more? So we're looking at that to say, in which instances might, different forms of digital be better, as well as e-signs. So we'd be interested in what you guys are seeing too.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that shift to people who were laggards before and adopting some of these technologies. We're seeing that shift happen very quickly. Like McKinsey saw the biggest group of consumers who moved to digital channels was the baby boomer category, right? And so that was always traditionally seen as,
Yeah.
oh well, they've got to have the paper, right? But then immediately what we saw was they were the most vulnerable group out of all of us from a health perspective. And they were the first ones to say, I don't want anything coming into my house, right? So they needed to adapt quickly. And so it's so funny that you brought up the online notary, because who would have ever thought that would be a thing, right? The whole purpose of a notary was to know this person was this person. And we always used to think that only existed by meeting them physically. So it's really interesting to see that shift. But what McKinsey also found, and what we're seeing in the marketplace, is that these shifts that have happened through the pandemic aren't going to reverse themselves post-pandemic. So whatever you're exploring, like the use of the QR code, I think that's fantastic, because Mia and I have never been fans of QR codes.
No.
For years, we've gone to conferences and sort of laughed at it because the adoption wasn't there. But the use case, right, wasn't necessarily there. Now it's there, right? Now there's the need. Our lives changed.
Absolutely. So seeing that.
And I know we've spoken about forms quite at length, and we've been laughing because everyone fills in a form differently. And when it comes to the baby boomers, they're more likely to want a form online that they can fill in. It's easy. They press submit and it goes. And when it comes to me, it's like, just send me the PDF. I'll fill it in on PDF. I don't want to have to log in. I don't want to have to go online. Just give me the PDF. So I think it's even in digital, you've got a whole lot of different preferences when it comes to the customer. Each customer wants to do things differently. So like having to meet those needs must be completely confusing. And how do you actually meet those digital needs of the customer?
We've definitely seen that, and even with signing documents too. Like, so, and people do, like, some people, and especially like insurance, people like to kind of print things down so they have a copy and things like that. And they security, and I know you guys have talked about this on your chats before. That's really important to them, especially with, they tend to do more paper, but at the same time they want that convenience of signing online and that piece of it. We found people are even, they'll fill it out online. They'll print it down and take a picture of it and send it to us, which is fine. There's like so many different ways that people like want to do it. Like you said that, they'll, you can fill out the PDF. They like, obviously email is a great channel now to be able to integrate with your back end. So, doing that. And then people, like you said, online, we're seeing, or we're looking at setting up user interfaces. So instead of a traditional form, ask you a series of questions. So, and then as the questions go in, we're filling out the form in the background. And then when you're done, presenting a form that will have everything on here, you look at it, check it, and then submit it. So it's kind of a different way. And what instances, and that's what we're looking at. Where does that work best? Because I'm with you, like sometimes I'd rather just fill out a quick PDF and be done. And I may not like answering all your questions. So I'm like, I'd rather do it myself, but there may be good cases that people rather, answer the questions kind of like a TurboTax and then have it at the end. So those are some of the other things we're exploring as well.
And I think it all comes back to the communication, Nancy, right? Like I agree with you, answering questions. I'll only do that if you tell me up front, right? How long this is going to take me, about how many questions this is, and then I will receive a completed look or view at the end, right? If you tell me that up front, then I'm much more likely to complete it. So I think all of these changes go in hand with how do you communicate all the changes to your customers? And so what are you guys looking at from that perspective?
That's fantastic because it's all about setting the expectations. Because I'm with you. If it's gonna, even like when we go on, people go onto the portal and it has multi-factor authentication. We've actually found lots of people get directed there where you can use the QR code, direct them there. But then they see this, whole thing that has directions and, you need to put in this number and stuff. And then we see people abandon. And then we actually have been watching too through the process, how many people go all the way through. So they go to online, they want to go do the claim. And then as they get through the process, we found the abandon rates really go to the ones that actually go through. So to your point, it's so important to set those expectations up front, to have on the instructions, this is what you need before you start. So we're really, so if you need any certain documents and stuff, you have them with there, you need your cell phone, you need these pieces. And I love that, how long it's going to take. I think that's really important. I don't think that's something I would love to add in. This process will take approximately this time, just to set those expectations, and anything else that they need to do before the end, so they have it, and have these documents handy. And then we also try, like, again, anything that's being signed usually goes to a signer service. So sometimes we found too, it's sometimes confusing. You're filling out the thing, you're filling everything out, and then it goes to like a DocuSign or a Sign Now, and then you have to put in other pieces of it. And then you may or may not have to go back to your original and attach something. And that's confusing because already just me saying it's confusing. So how do we make sure, so we're using different, little pop-up boxes or things to make sure you go back and do this, and reminders to make sure people know when they're done. And then obviously making sure you have confirms when you're done that it went through, and, save this for your files. Well, we're sending you the original document, but it's all, I'm with you so much, is about the expectation going into it. Otherwise you're going to see those abandoned, right? People will come and have a good intention to get started and then say, I'm going to fill this out by hand and, mail it or do something else if they're not ready.
I love the fact that you actually went into when people are abandoning the process, and then you can make changes, because Liz and I have spoken ad nauseum about micro changes, especially when it comes to like digital implementations. It may not work. You may have the best intentions and customers don't react the way you expect them to. So those micro changes,
Yep.
everything, like how agile are you in taking the process you've put in place and making changes so the customer can actually get through it?
Yeah, and going back and asking those questions, that's so important, and doing it.
And I love, Nancy, that everything you said today has started with the customer. So it's great to know that, you are thinking about the customer first, because I think that's the key to any digital transformation. It's not about tech stacks, right? It's not about solutions and tools. It's about the customer experience. And so if something is not changing the customer experience for the better, then it's not really the right way to go. So thank you so much for sharing this with us today. I think there's so much more we could talk about. So we'd love to have you on in a future chat to discuss more and see how things are going.
That'll be great. I'll get my mugs ready.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. Well, thank you. Cheers to the weekend. And we'll talk to all of you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.